To the week ahead, Mondays I don't really, you know, pay too much attention to the market, but I did actually end up taking shorts on euro after the market outlook session that we had on Sunday, and just kind of made sense to take shorts for me. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Obviously, we'll be mainly focused on the outlook for CPI and looking to potentially take some trades live today. But that'll be a matter of, if the opportunity makes sense to take advantage of. And yeah, we'll get into that momentarily, just making sure that the YouTube stream is up. If anybody needs the YouTube link, all right, and they can't tune in for this particular session on Zoom once we max out, this is the link in the chat. All right, so you guys can save that for future reference for your people. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, let me do one more thing here, and then we're gonna go ahead and dive into things officially, formally. We got let's see. Keep dropping in the chat where you're tuning in from if you haven't already. I'm gonna shout y'all out in a second as well. All right. CPI live trading. Zoom is nearing capacity. Tune in on YouTube. Okay, sweet. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's not waste another moment. We got about 24 minutes, 24 minutes until the actual CPI release. So let's go ahead and dive into it. And as always, guys, news trading days are not to be taken lightly. They're not to be taken for granted. They're not to be taken advantage of because they will wipe you out. And they'll do so unempathetically. Okay. So make sure that you are, trading with slightly reduced risk on a news day, specifically when you're trading the news release. Okay. Obviously, everybody here is going to do whatever they're going to do, right? If you blow your account, I'm not going to feel bad for you because I'm communicating to you well in advance, 23 minutes in advance to trade with proper risk. And none of what I'm sharing is financial advice. So just because there's an opportunity that I'm seeing that I'm deciding to take with my own discretion, it doesn't mean that you should full port the position and then blow your account just because it's a trade idea that, an educator shared on a session. You know what I mean? So be smart. All right. And I say that with respect and also to like wake people up because I think some people don't, think straight when they're on sessions with educators, especially on news days. So please don't do anything I wouldn't do. All right. And when I'm trading a news day, this is what I'm risking 0.75% of what I normally do. So, and sometimes it's even, less than that, but this is like what I'll be using today personally. So yeah, just consider that. Like, what do we have for news? Right, it's the CPI release, core CPI and base CPI. This will be coming out in about 12 or not 12 minutes, 22 minutes. And yeah, let's dive right into outlooks. So first things first. Okay, this was something that I was taking a look at to start the week on Euro USD, and this remains a relevant area for me. Buying point of interest. The parameters are on screen for entry, SL and TP. And the two scenarios that we had on Sunday was either we were going to sell off to start the week, trade into this area and look for buys to then target highs on the smaller time frames, or it was going to be we traded higher first, capturing buy side liquidity to then sell off and take these lows later into the week. And so personally, I'm in shorts from here. Okay, I'm already positioned in shorts on euro, looking to target these lows on the daily time frame, and I really like these lows down here as well. We'll see if we can get there, but looking to hold this for about a 1 to 5 risk to reward, and so I'm not looking to you know do anything crazy on euro today for news because I'm already positioned in shorts, and we'll see if it makes sense to add on to the position, of course. And we'll take a look at that, you know, objectively to see what we could potentially, wait on. Um, and yeah, we traded into the daily fair value gap, traded well through it, to be honest, captured a significant amount of liquidity. This was like very artificial, this whole pump on Euro USD. That's why I was like, okay, probably going to be okay to take shorts here because what is fast doesn't last, what is slow will grow. And this is a pretty fast move, generally speaking. So, yeah, ideally, we see this thing continue lower. I wouldn't be opposed to, for taking a look at news and what we could potentially expect. Well, firstly, we're approaching this liquidity, and it's quite likely we're going to take this out. It might even be before CPI. Um, usually with news, the way that I'll look to trade it is I want to see a spike to capture one side of liquidity, and then look to take a position to potentially target the other side of liquidity. Um, I'm not personally going to take buys until we take out all these lows and we reach down to that lower point of interest. That's just me. But we could potentially see price trade lower first down into, this fair value gap and potentially get a bounce for buying opportunity. And then inversely, if we take a look at what we had developed or what we had seen develop during the London session, this is an area of relevance to me as well, where we have the last few up close candles prior to this down move that also captured a considerable amount of liquidity, right? These two swing highs on the 15-minute time frame. Okay, both of those highs taken out with this kind of buy to sell motion. And we've kind of consolidated here before getting this melt off. This was going into around 7 a.m. Eastern about an hour ago. But I wouldn't be opposed to seeing, what price does. If we were to trade higher first, we got a fair value gap here. We've also got this order block that we could potentially observe price developing inside of. And I wouldn't necessarily set a limit on this, but like just for fun to mark this out, what could you look to do, right? Stop above the high, looking to target, bare minimum 1 to 2 risk reward is kind of what my rule of thumb is. Ideally, like 1 to 3, to be honest, but bare minimum 1 to 2. However, again, I wouldn't put a limit on this because this could very, very easily get swept if we were to trade higher first, as long as we respect this high. This thing is, I would say, setting up to continue selling off. So yeah, that's kind of the perspective on Euro USD. And I'll just be observing price. I'm gonna, we'll set an alert up here just for fun so that we can observe this should we trade up into that area. But yeah, that would be the potential first anticipation and kind of outlook for CPI. If we jump over to GU, we have fairly similar price action, but we are getting a bit of a difference, okay, in that Euro USD has been weaker to start the week. We've been selling off more aggressively than GU. GU has just been consolidating at this high. So because these are two fairly closely correlated pairs, we can look for a similar bias on GBP USD as we can on Euro. And we take a look at this. We have the fair value gap present on the 15-minute, and those same candles from London session are right up here. All right, that same order block. And I wouldn't be opposed to potentially taking shorts if we do end up taking out, this high with news, trading it into this area. We also have a fair value gap here too, to potentially take sells, targeting all of this liquidity, which would be pretty low-hanging fruit, in my opinion. So it's really just a matter of, do we reject off this fair value gap or do we trade a little bit higher? And I wouldn't even be opposed to potentially setting a limit on the higher point of interest here. It's still like not that far away from current price. So usually for news, if you're going to set a limit, again, make sure you're doing it with slightly reduced risk because they can very easily get blown through. But sometimes it's also the difference between you being positioned in the trade and not being positioned in the trade because of how quickly price will move sometimes from points of interest. We could, for example, trade up into this area and be here for like 3 seconds, and then the market's all the way back down here. And now it's like you're not getting the same risk to reward because you didn't set a limit, right? So just use your own discernment, see what makes sense for you. And man, I totally forgot to show y'all out with where you're tuned in from, but let me do that right now. We got Hungary, Berlin, Scotland, Fort McMurray, Alberta, let's go Walker. We got Sweden, Solomon Islands, Nebraska, Romania, Slovakia. We got Nigeria in the house, London, Philippines, Mauritius, Guyana, Australia, Tilbury, Ontario, Jamaica, Estonia. Let's go. We love to see it. Norway, Dublin, Ireland, Calgary. We got Czechia, Mexico, Edmonton. Amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Cool. Shout out to you guys, man. Rwanda. We love to see it, baby. We love to see it. We worldwide. So I'm gonna set an alert at this high. This is around like 134, 740. And we're currently in terms of distance from that price area, we're not far at all. Like 16 pips for CPI release is like baby food. So again, just be mindful, like we could see this, sweep these lows before CPI, and I would actually be more reluctant to take sells because we could very easily get a run on this. But if these lows remain intact for CPI and we get a spike higher and then lower, that could be favorable for potential shorts. So food for thought, something to consider. GJ, not really looking to do anything with this. This thing's been super bullish. And I'd like to see this. This is a weekly high at 215, just shy of 215,900 that I want to see taken out. Goldilocks is in price discovery. We started the week, trading to price discovery, which is pretty sweet. This is still a relevant fair value gap from the start of the week that I'd be curious to see if price can trade back to. And what are we doing right now on gold? We're generating quite a bit of liquidity on the sell side beneath lows. And at some point this week, I'd like to see price, trade to take out some of this liquidity before, continuing higher in a big way. But with that being said, I'm not personally looking to take sells, period. Period. All right. There's no point in really taking shorts at all-time highs like this. Could you get away with it? Yeah, for sure. You could take a scalp and it could be, favorable. But for two reasons, I don't like to take sells on gold when we're at price discovery. Number one, you can't swing it. You can't hold it long term. It's something that is very short-lived, like usually a day or two max. In some cases longer, right? It depends. But I would prefer personally to just wait for these lows to get swept, look for accumulation, look for signs of, you know, evidence that show that price wants to and has the desire to trade higher, trading back into a point of interest like this fair value gap, for example, which is present on the daily. Okay, we have this fair value gap right here that I'd like to see price trade back to. This is around 4,500 to 4,480. This little fair value gap right here is what I want to see gold potentially trade back to this week at some point, maybe next week. But we also have this big fair value gap too. But this is the one that I'm personally more focused on because until this daily candle closes, this is not a fair value gap, right? We got to wait for candle closure to justify it and it actually be a fair value gap. So with that, with that in mind, right, what can we look to position ourselves in? Well, if we get any sort of capture of all these lows this morning and trade even, remotely down into this area, I'd be open to taking buys. Okay. And I'm also going to be observing price action on the 1 minute, 3 minute for inversions using the inversion indicator to see what kind of price action develops, in this area once we take out lows, if we take out lows. At the end of the day, this is all we're kind of just anticipating until the news releases, right? Which is kind of why it's good to wait until the news releases to enter the market because there's at the end of the day no knowing for certain what direction the market's going to trade with any sort of a news release, right? So it's always good to identify points of interest and then respond to what you're seeing after the release instead of trying to take an entry prematurely. Like for example, NFP last week, we did have sells on gold prior to the news release, and initial spike was favorable for us, but didn't end up being favorable for very long. So it's like usually my preference is to wait until after the news release. Any sort of trades before the news release is usually gambling, to be honest. Super high risk, or not super high risk, because it depends how much you're putting on the line. But it's just not usually my preference, and that's how accounts are usually blown, to be honest, trading news. Check this mug out, ladies and gentlemen. I got my Barbados mug. Sheesh. I have family from Barbados. People are always like, "What? Dude, you're way too white." And I'm like, "I know." My my dad's parents were born and raised in Barbados. Well, actually, my nana was born in New Guyana, and then my papa was born in Barbados. Fun fact. And they didn't take me to Barbados, or we didn't go as a family to Barbados until like 2023. Can you believe that? I spent 24 years, almost 20. Actually, yeah, it would have been 24 years of my life. Wait, no, 23 years. 23 years of my life never going to Barbados. And we've had family there the whole time. And I've known about it. And I've seen them go on trips without me when I was a kid. And I'm like, okay, you know, never will I ever make my kids jealous because I'm going on a trip and not bringing them when I have kids. Everybody's coming. All right. We're homeschooling. Everybody's going to Barbados, Bahamas, wherever we're going. Anyways, yeah. So we got lows here. We're trading above a local high. In terms of, I'm curious. Yeah, so Asian range, this is what we're looking at for the Asian range, right? Like these lows, this is like Asian range, and this is a low of pre-New York session. This is like just before London session low as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if we end up getting a run on at least these two lows today at some point. We don't need to though. Like gold could very easily continue higher from here, for sure. So I would just be a little bit, again, I'm not personally looking for sells, and I'm not looking to actually execute any sells, because my preference is just to hold buys. Like this was a buy that we had from last week on Thursday that was very easy for us to be holding until today for a 1 to almost 9 risk to reward ratio. Simple. That was a simple buy and just, set it, forget it, right? So that is my preference in trading. If we can take some short term like day trades and scalps, great. But my preference is always swing trading and holding at least a portion of my position for a swing, you know. But we see yeah, we got some people in the YouTube chat. We got we be trading gold or BTC. Yeah, we'll be taking a look at both. Yeah, we'll be taking a look at both, but it's just going to be dependent on how news releases in terms of what we're going to be trading. So far, sells on euro are what I'm more focused on, and sells on GU. I'm focused on that more than like gold. And then in terms of Bitcoin, we can take a look at it right now. If we can get candle closure above 95K, that's like straight to 100 to 102.5K for me. So candle closure above this area is significant on BTC, but until then, this consolidation just chopping sideways BS is kind of boring. This was an idea from Sunday's session. I'm not sure if anybody ended up participating in this. The anticipation was for price to at some point pull back into the fair value gap. We did get a pullback ever so subtly into this fair value gap. Okay. I don't know if you guys can see that. And it's not where I initially had my entry parameters from, but this was an idea that actually played out really nicely. Straight to full TP above this high at like 92K for, if you were to take entry from the top of the fair value gap here, 1 to 3 risk to reward. Even if you missed that initial 5-minute area, there was an easy inversion play here, like very, very easy, given to you by the indicator. Okay, 1 minute fair value gap on the way down. What do we do? Candle closure above it. Entry parameters provided. Stop beneath the low. TPs 1 and 2 are based on risk to reward ratios of 1 to 1 and 1 to 2 risk to reward respectively. But ultimately targeting that higher time frame point of interest. This was a simple setup from Sunday's class. So for those of you that were here, even if you took the 3-minute inversion, which is usually my preference because it's a little bit higher probability than a 1 minute, this was textbook, textbook. We sold off, we captured these lows, okay, captured liquidity, traded subtly into this fair value gap immediately and got an inversion after and flew, like literally flew, consolidated a little bit. Price did its thing, but we got price to really climb nicely on BTC from Sunday's class. So for those of you guys that were here for Market Outlook on Sunday, maybe you participated, maybe you were an observer, but that was kind of what ended up unfolding for Bitcoin. And in terms of where we're currently trading and what I'd be looking for, normally I don't really trade, BTC for a CPI release. We'll see volatility most likely, but I'm not usually looking to focus on trading Bitcoin for a CPI release. And if I was to be trading, BTC for CPI, this is what I'm looking at for the week in general, to be honest. I'd like to see price potentially capture these lows. Okay, this is again just low-hanging fruit, easy liquidity for price to trade down and, potentially take out to then maybe get us into this order block before continuing higher. You could even look for potential sells this morning, right? We had nice run on liquidity here and we're just kind of consolidating. We could see price very easily sell off today on BTC based on what we've currently been observing in terms of price action. So, the only area where I'd actually like put entry parameters because it would make sense for me would be the buys down here. Easy 1 to 4. Are we going to get it? I don't know. Let's see. Maybe not. But setting alert down here too, just in the event that we do get a sell off nicely on BTC today. So yeah, man. I know we're going kind of quickly over all this. USD CAD. Actually, we haven't looked at USD CAD yet. We can do so though. So USD CAD, this is insane consolidation that we're in right now. Liquidity equal lows on the downside. We've got, not as equal highs, but we do have liquidity on the buy side as well above these highs. And while retail traders will look to take sells off this area of quote unquote resistance, I'm not that guy. I'm waiting for these to get disrespected and then looking for shorts, or I'm looking for a sell off to capture these lows to then take buys and then target the highs. And that's what my ideal bias would be today on USD CAD is a sell off to capture at least these lows, hopefully this low as well, these couple lows, to then take buys. That's what I'd be looking for. And that would also be in alignment with Euro USD for sells, the buy up to sell down. You know, so that's personally what I would be looking for in terms of points of interest for buys from, this would be the main one for me. But any sort of run on these lows in terms of liquidity could be favorable for us to get potential inversion plays. So we'll observe this. We got alerts on quite a few things here, so we might be hopefully not splitting the focus too much this morning, but we'll see. But I do like USD CAD for potential buys, but I would want to see a sell off first to then justify potential buys. You know, that'd be the ideal scene. I mean, you could look for shorts from this fair value gap if we spike higher first, but again, it's like, that's counter trend. So it's higher risk. We certainly could get a retracement from there. So if you're looking for sells, that's something you could be mindful of, right? Sells from like this zone. But yeah, let's see. Let's see. We got 2 minutes until the news releases. The one position that I would really be leaning towards, or the two positions, well, really three: Euro USD, GBP USD, USD CAD. Those are like the three I'm really focused on for CPI today. Every day it's a little bit different. Not every news release is going to be favorable for gold or favorable for the same asset class, right? There's usually going to be opportunities on each of them, but in terms of the ones that are the most textbook, the most clean, the ones that you can identify like well in advance kind of thing, it's going to be different just about every time. So gold, we're not really looking for anything on gold right now, so I'm not going to pull it up on screen. The only thing I'm looking for on gold is potential buys beneath the lows at, you know, um, 45.73. I'd be looking for longs below those lows, but other than that, not really any need to pull up the chart on screen for the release unless we take these lows. Then I'm down to take a look at it. But yeah, Euro cells, again, this is like high risk. I wouldn't set a limit on that. I would wait. And then GU, this is actually, this is something I would potentially put a limit on for GU. So let's see, ladies and gentlemen, we got 20 seconds for the release. With news trading, you can breathe. You don't need to be rushing. You don't need to be like feeling stressed internally. Like you can just be a nonchalant, chill guy, you know? That's my preference, at least. Wow. That is an insane spike. Anybody that did have the limit on GU, you're activated. It looks like we're probably going to take that high though, like I mentioned. I'm personally not in anything at the moment. What's EU doing? Yeah, I had a feeling we would sweep that high, to be honest. So now what we want to see, okay? So we just swept all these lows. Understand that, usually with news, you're going to see a bamboozle, as I like to call it, where you get a sweep of lows and then a sweep of highs, right? So what did we just do on GU before the news? We swept these lows. We swept these lows. What are we doing now? Sweeping the highs, okay? Although we had these potential points of interest for price to maybe reject from, as I was mentioning prior to the release, this is something that can happen very, very easily with news, where price will just run on all that liquidity. So really, what I'd be looking for now, what is USD CAD doing? Hold on, let's pull this up. Okay, we like that. We like that. We got the first set of lows getting swept on USD CAD. Um, I I would like to look for a potential entry on really all three of these right now. It's going to be kind of tricky to like have my focus. Usually I like to have my focus on one thing, but all three of these are pretty setting up kind of nicely. Shorts on Euro USD and GU, buys on USD CAD. USD CAD is the one that's developing the slowest, so this is probably the one that we'll be able to get the best opportunity on. I think we might take this out, right? So we swept the first area of equal lows. If we can take this low out, the kid is going to be looking for an inversion down here for sure. For sure. And then in terms of EU, GU, um, how can we look for entries on this? And what do we trade into, right? This is an alternative point of interest, right? This order block as well, last up candle prior to this down move that we've seen. We ended up wicking into that. This is, again, I'm not surprised at all that we took this high. It's easy liquidity, the most recent, other than this little internal one. So shorts, I mean, honestly, shorts from here could be quite favorable. Gold's doing its thing again. I'm not even going to focus on gold really. BTC is trading higher. Cool. But yeah, EU, GU, USD CAD, those are the ones that we're going to look to potentially take entries on. For me, I'm just trying to wait and see if we can get any sort of lower price action, lower pricing. GU is continuing higher. So being patient on execution here, not looking to take any positions or jump into any positions preemptively, right? Looking for evidence of price wanting to reverse, looking for an inversion, ideally out of a point of interest, right? Some sort of order block or fair value gap. But I would want to see these go lower from where we're trading. You know, I would. Is this the area that Brad was talking about on Sunday? Is Brad on here? Is this that area you were looking for sells from, Brad? I think it is. Nice, man. Are you in cells? That was a nice rejection, bro. Nice CPI rejection. We love to see it. Not yet. True. True. Yeah, we could see these flip from here or continue a little bit more in trend direction. Again, I'm not going to jump into a setup too early. We haven't seen any inversion on any time frame yet, but obviously getting quite a nice reaction from these zones. So now it's just a matter of being patient and looking to identify a potential setup, right? Like USD CAD for me, looking at these lows, like these are, did we take this low out? Yeah, these are practically equal. So do we fly from here? Maybe, but like these are lows that could very easily still get traded through before we actually see the true reversal after CPI is released now. And also what we could potentially see is price trade higher and then reject to go a little bit lower and then go. This thing could very easily flip. This would be a V-shaped recovery, manipulation at news, and then, look to target the other side of liquidity very easily too. So really just depends on how price wants to develop. Dang, I kind of wish I saw that area on GU earlier. We could have set a limit on that. That would have been even better as a zone. But it's all good. It's all good. Mm-mm-mm. Even if we end up getting into a position late in comparison to where the false spike went for news, I'd rather be late to a position with a slightly worse risk to reward than force a trade just based on what I think is going to happen, right? Even though that might be a winning trade that gets me a better risk to reward and a better quote entry in terms of entry price, I want to wait for the confirmations. I want to wait for things that, I personally look for to justify taking a trade, right? So for us, we've seen this move. Could we take sell stop above this high? For sure. 100%. Is it my ideal scene to though? Not really. I'd rather wait for, you know, uh, an inversion. You could look at the 15-second and be like, Donnie, we just got an inversion right here. Why not take sells on the 15-second time frame? Well, because it's the 15-second time frame. You know what I mean? It's like, why would I want to take you can do it. You know what I mean? I'm not going to stop you from doing it. I'm not going to judge you for doing it. But for me, it's like I want to look for 1 minute, 3 minute inversions more ideally. But this thing might just melt, ladies and gentlemen. We might just see these things melt. So, USD CAD, are we seeing? Yeah, we're seeing some nice bullish price action on USD CAD. This looks like we might just fly from here, right? Like we might leave these lows intact, to be honest. Um, which is it is what it is, might mean that we're not a part of the move. Or we get rewarded for being patient. We see lows taken out, early buyers get swept, and then, we can take our position, right? This will be a key area for USD CAD to battle and break through on the 3 minute. And it's the same thing on GU. Got this area here. And EU, same thing. So now it's just a matter of who is going to win the battle. We're going to see a bounce, or are we going to just melt through? Based on price action, it's looking like we might melt through, which again, I'm happy with. I'm in shorts on euro from back here, right? Okay, good. I was just like, hopefully I didn't get hit break even, and I didn't, thankfully. So I'm already positioned in EU, What are the targets if you're in shorts already? On euro, I'm looking for these lows. This is down at like 116, 150, and then this is like 115, 800. That's where I'm personally looking for euro to trade. This is a pretty nice wick. We had 4 hour fair value gap fill. This is like an hourly time frame. point of interest as well. This order block on the hourly, it's actually pretty clean where we ended up trading into. And then USD CAD, we didn't really have anything that we were reacting off of. We were just literally just capturing lows. So, okay, so we're rejecting from the fair value gap. This is a 3 minute fair value and 1 minute too, but the way I have it drawn is from the 3 minute. Um, so far, we're rejecting from this. I would want to see, again, I'm looking for an inversion. All right, what is an inversion? All right, well, firstly, if you aren't already hooked up with the Institutional Trading Dictionary, I'll grab it for you guys. Hopefully this link's working because yesterday it was like broken again. But you guys let me know if this link works for y'all in the chat box. Yeah, I'll even drop it on YouTube for the, one viewer. I don't actually know who's on YouTube, but there's probably more than one person. But let me know if that link is working in the chat box, guys. Okay, let me know if you can open it. It should bring you to no. Okay. I don't know how it broke, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know how it broke. It's still broken apparently. So let me grab the other link that I know is working for the dictionary real quick. Um, Give me a second, you guys. All right, try this link. Try that link. Let me know if that works. And then if it does, I'll drop it on YouTube as well. Yes? Okay, perfect. So this link will bring you to the Institutional Trading Dictionary, which describes in detail a lot of different jargon that we use on these sessions. So if you're looking for jargon on like what is R, what is liquidity? What is a liquidity grab? What is inducement? What is, mitigation? Okay. Keywords to understand and acknowledge when we're talking about smart money concepts on these sessions. Inversion is in here as well. Okay. The written definition of it is, inversion in the context of fair value gaps and market imbalances occurs when a previously significant price gap or imbalance changes its role from support to resistance. So, for example, here, this is a 3 minute or fair value gap. We sold off, we created that imbalance, prices returned to the imbalance, and we're rejecting from it. The current role it's playing is resistance. Okay, really what's happening is prices trading into this area of inefficiency to fill that area to no longer be inefficient for price to continue developing healthily because this was a massive and very fast move, right? If we get candle closure above this fair value gap, that is what we call an inversion. And now the same area, it's kind of like a break and retest, right? Where the same area that we initially were anticipating price to reject from to go lower, we can now look for price to respect and go higher off of. So the whole idea behind the inverse fair value gap indicator, okay, which, this could be an inversion right here, right? Fair value gap on the way up. You've got this area, which, depending on how this candle closes, we might get entry parameters off of. Um, an inversion is like a sign of reversal. It's a sign of, I don't want to say disrespecting, but like disrespecting the initial area that you could have, seen a bounce off of. So now that this candle closed, right, we had a fair value gap that we've now closed beneath. This indicator will identify entry and exit parameters accordingly. So actually, I'm not even, this actually looks kind of neat on USD CAD. I'm not going to take this because again, the buys are more favorable for me. But let's just say for fun, we take this. Okay. In the grand scheme of things, in terms of the targets, this is like right in line with what I would want to see taken out in terms of the lows before looking for buys. So, I mean, if you guys are looking for a trade and you're like, I'm not leaving Donnie's session until I take a trade, use proper risk. This is the 1 minute time frame, counter trend, and considering the higher time frames. But if you're looking for a setup, this is one you could take. Okay. I'm not taking it. I'm telling you guys that, but you can take it if you want. This would be a relevant setup, right? We had a fair value gap on the way up into this 3 minute area, candle closure through it. This could very easily continue lower, very easily. Um, you know, and it's looking like that could very well be the case with Euro and GU as well. Right. Same thing, actually. We got an inversion here as well. I don't like that as much. We're not getting as like much authority of a candle closure through the fair value gap on Euro. GU, we haven't even seen inversion yet. So this is more so just for demonstration purposes. But again, if you guys are like looking for a setup, this is one you could take. Um, but yeah, you know, could be favorable for us to go towards these lows and sweep those lows. Or this thing just flies and disrespects the 1 minute inverse. Because it's the 1 minute time frame, right? The 1 minute time frame for me doesn't hold as much weight, hence why I'm not personally taking the setup. And also, it just doesn't make sense for me to be taking sells on USD CAD when buying is much more favorable. But notice how the indicator, I know it gets a little bit messy sometimes, which is why we're in the beta, uh, you know, phase. That's the word I'm looking for, beta phase, is we want to obviously improve this over time. But basically, here was another fair value gap created on the downside. Price got candle closure above it. So this thing's just going to identify every single inversion for you, which is why you have to use your discernment as to which ones you take, especially if you're just looking at this on the 1 minute. Not every fair value gap or inversion is created equal. You have to understand what would be a higher probability setup versus just another inversion on the 1 minute time frame. And this would be an example of just like a dud inversion for me. There's no relevance. There's no like, if you look at cause and effect, the theory, understanding that any effect or any sort of price movement that's significant in the market had some sort of cause, right? What is this cause going to, lead to in terms of an effect, right? A 1 minute, no liquidity captured, fair value gap inversion. Um, you know, like, yeah, maybe we swept these lows, you know what I mean? Like it's just there's not much relevance for me. So I like to look for higher time frame areas of liquidity to get captured and then a smaller time frame inversion, you know. But again, 1 minute time frame is usually going to hold the least weight. 3 minute time frame, a little bit more weight. 5 minute time frame, even more weight, you know. So, but yeah, the inversion indicator is a good one. It just saves some time in terms of like getting entry and exit parameters. But uh, but yeah, looks like USD CAD might actually want to trade higher here, but we'll see. Euro as well. All right, let me turn this off because we're getting too much noise. I'm still sitting on my hands, ladies and gentlemen. I haven't taken a single trade because I'm just not, nothing's jumping out at me. Um, this would have been nice in hindsight. GU would have been nice in hindsight as well. And I'll wait to potentially take sells on, these during New York session, even if it's like after, the live session here. Depending on how price continues to develop. USD CAD, again, this is more for demonstration purposes, but if you were like, really wanting to take a trade on the session, maybe you're in the sell. All right. But yeah. Any questions, comments, observations? You guys let me know in the chat. We'll be here for another like 10 minutes or so before I jump off. What about Goldilocks? Not really looking for anything. Not really looking for anything. I mean, hey, if you were gonna take shorts on gold, there's like no more internal liquidity from this range. I'm just saying, we just swept all that with news. So if we were gonna see anybody selling, it'd be now. But again, for me to sell at an all-time high in price discovery, you know, it just I couldn't really justify doing it personally. That's just me, you know. But hey, if you're looking at the indicator here, right? What do we have that was just created on the way up on the 3 minute? There's your fair value gap. We get candle closure through that. The parameters will be given with SL above this high, entry from wherever the candle closes, targeting, 1-to-1 and 1-to-2 risk reward. Maybe that's an opportunity leaving the session, right? What is fast doesn't last. What is slow will grow. So if we take a look at 830, fly to the upside, continuing to have follow through. What's the reason for this move, right? Are we going to go into price discovery again? That could be it. Or is this one of those instances where we're going to see price sell off and target these lows, and all this move was liquidity capture, right? It's really one of those two scenarios for me. So if you were looking to sell gold, wait for that 3 minute inversion and you can maybe take a jab at it. But again, it's high risk, or not high risk. It's just like counter trend, counter trend trade. Let me check out the chat here. The link on your Instagram isn't working either. Yeah, when you type dictionary on Instagram, it's broken right now. That's how I found out about the link actually being broken. Somebody DM'd me that and they're like, this automation link is not working. So that's why we got the backup. If you need the institutional trading dictionary, it's in the Zoom chat. And wait, where did the YouTube chat go? Did I close it? Hello? And for those of y'all that are inside of Primeverse, we got Cohen's session in about 9 minutes. So when we wrap up this session, let's all go jump on to Cohen's session. Um, that's where I'm gonna go at least. So we'll continue the conversation there. Where is my YouTube chat at? What the heck, bro? Here it is. Okay, cool. Bro, how do I access the indicator? Good question. I should probably, go over that. So the indicator is currently in its beta form. And the way you can access it is inside the Primeverse community. So here's the Primeverse community. This is like, think of Discord, but it's our own platform called Primeverse. We have like different AI tools, scanners, and one of the scanners or indicators is called Zonar. It's like a smart money, scanner. This is what it looks like on screen. Okay. And it'll identify based on the higher time frame what you have this chosen to, points of interest, OTE areas, and identify like trading ranges. So this is like a trading range from this low to this high on golds. Here's your OTE. You got bullish and bearish fair value gaps that are identified. And if you click display signals, it'll actually show your entry and exit parameters according to the most recent order block. Would I personally take this buy, even though it's identifying it? No, that's just me, because I kind of understand that we're buying at a premium. I want to be buying at a discount if I am taking buys, which is why this OTE is on screen and what I use to frame entries off of. But yeah, this is the other indicator we have. And this is, these are both inside of Primeverse. So if you're not already a member of the free community called Primeverse, you can reach out. Just DM me the word community on Instagram. I have an automation set up for it. You do have to be using the broker PU Prime. They're who are sponsoring the entire community. So the second most regulated broker in the industry. And as long as you have a live account with PU Prime, you have access to Primeverse. So yeah. And if you have questions about it, you can just DM me on Instagram. This is my Instagram here. DM me the word community on Instagram, and drop this in the chats as well. Do you guys like my reel? Did you guys see my reel from yesterday? I thought it was kind of funny. I had a lot of fun recording that one. Okay, so we did get inversion on the 3 minute, ladies and gentlemen. We got inversion on gold on the 3 minute. I might, you know what, man? Sometimes you just gotta. Actually, we didn't get inversion yet. Excuse me. We're like about to. 1 minute we did. I might just do it for the Vine, ladies and gentlemen. I might just take shorts on gold for the Vine. I know it's counter trend. I'm gonna wait for a 3 minute inversion personally. I'm not taking the 1 minute. You could take the 1 minute. The parameters are on screen. Okay. But yo, like low key, this is like easy money. I feel like inversion targeting this low, stop above the high, easy 1 to 2, easy 1 to 2. From current price, you're looking at like a 1 to 1 to 1.5. Okay, I do actually see gold selling off from here. What we're seeing, EUGU, USD CAD just consolidating. Ah, look at that. USD CAD is actually trading higher. So if you did take the inversion play, you got clapped. Hence why I was hopefully explicit enough to tell you guys this was more for demonstration purposes. But so we might get inversion on USD CAD above this 3 minute fair value gap. Um, and I guess this inversion that we got from here was not just a dud because that ended up playing out, right? But again, the indicator, it's like we're in beta, we're trying to make it better. We're going to make it better. There's a feedback form as well. You guys can submit feedback. Who's actually been using and messing around with the indicator, by the way? Anybody? Let me know if you guys have been messing around with it. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we might have some nice opportunities for shorts here. If you're in from the 1 minute, you're currently floating up in profit. 3 minute is what I'm going to be waiting for. I would ideally, based on how bearish of a move this is, I want to wait for the next candle to open and ideally wick higher to get a slightly better entry, but we'll see if we get that or not. And the entry parameters will be kind of on screen accordingly here. I'm going to take a jab at this, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Just for fun. Okay. I'm going to wait. I'm still waiting. I'm not in the trade yet, but I'm getting ready to be. And yeah, entry from more or less 4608. Waiting for that wick higher. All right, I'm in there. I'm in there personally. I'm in there basically with these parameters. And then I like how TP1 is, I mean, yeah, we'll see what happens. I think this is low-hanging fruit, pretty low-hanging fruit. This is counter trend. Ideally, you want to be buying gold, but I think this is a pretty simple setup, to be honest, to rock with going into the rest of the morning session. So, we'll see what happens, right? We'll see what happens with this. But I'm in there personally. We got like 2 minutes before we wrap up the session and jump on to Cohen's. But yeah, parameters are on screen. Realistically, you have entry anywhere from here to where this original fair value gap was. This is kind of like the range in which you could look to take an entry if you wanted to. Okay, not financial advice, use proper risk management, all that good stuff. But yeah, so shorts on gold. We could also just bounce off this fair value gap, and this is, an invalid setup, but I'm okay taking the L if that's the case. And let's see. So we have entry from 4608 to, basically 4614. That's a pretty big range. I know it's a fairly big range. SL 4621. And then TP1 is at a 1-to-1 risk reward. But you could potentially even pay yourself at like 4,600 flat. So we'll do this for anybody that's looking for like just some quick pips and dip, 4,600. And then TP3 will do the 1 to 2 at 45.80. So if you're in there, those are the parameters. I'm in there personally. We'll see what happens. If this is a losing trade, I'm okay with it. I use proper risk. Hopefully you did too, and you don't blow your account because, I think I've done a pretty good job this session being like, don't be a dumbass and, excuse my French. But I tell you, man, like I get messages from people like, dude, like I've gotten some crazy messages from people over the years, like attacking the kid for taking a trade. And I'm like, yo, I was just sharing with you what I was doing and it hit stop loss. Like I'm not gonna win every trade. What do you want from me? You know? Like nobody's gonna win every single trade. So you over leveraging on any trade is kind of silly, you know? USD CAD, ladies and gentlemen, this is still on the table. Okay. This is still on the table. We are still respecting the 3-minute fair value gap. If we get candle closure above this, we get inversion, maybe there's buying opportunity. Same with EU, same with GU. This is so far, these are two areas where price is still respecting. So just keep an eye on those, do some of your own analysis. Don't feel like you need to be on a session with me or any other educator for that matter to like take a trade. Like, if you're learning and you don't feel comfortable doing it on your live account because you're newer, that's totally fine. Practice on a demo. You know, what are we looking for here? We're looking for a run on liquidity followed by an inversion in this area. That's what I'll be looking for using the inversion indicator. Okay. And then, yeah, guys, I'm going to wrap things up here. We're going to jump on to Cohen's live session inside of Primeverse, which you can see is now live. And so, yeah, we got a bunch of people that are going to be tapped in for this session. Let's go ahead and jump on to his, see what other opportunities we can get. Sit tight on gold, right? Let's see what happens. Could be a banger, could be an SL. These are the parameters, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, fam, let's have a good rest of the day. Happy Tuesday. I'll see you guys tomorrow. For those of you inside of Primeverse, we'll be back tomorrow for live trading at 10 a.m. On Wednesday. So see y'all then. Much love.